Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Riders Minds badge training session that we're hosting today. I'm Zoe. I'm the lead marketing officer for the Pony Club. And tonight I'm joined by Ellie, the lead training officer for the Pony Club, Sylvia Bruce, who's the subject matter expert for Riders Minds, and Victoria, the charity chairman. So just before we get started today, I'm just going to run through a few housekeeping rules with you. First off, the video will be available on the Resource Hub after tonight's session. So if you've got access to the Resource Hub as a coach, you'll be able to search and look back through this video if you've got any further queries or want to have any reviews. We have chat moderation on. So within that, anything that you type into the chat will come through to us and we'll be able to see it and review it. And then some of it will go through to public. Some of it will filter through to questions. If you have a question, it's really important that you add a question mark to the end of the sentence. That way the system will automatically filter questions through for us so that we can see them our end. This evening, we're going to go through what Riders Minds is and why we are doing the badge, the syllabus, the completion sheet, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A with Sylvia and Victoria. So please get those questions coming through the chat and then we'll be able to present them all for you at the very end. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Victoria to start the training.
No, well, thank you, first of all, for having both myself and Sylvia on here this evening. We're really, really happy to be here and to be talking about the Riders Minds badge training. Obviously, the Pony Club badge for us is a huge thing. For those of you that hopefully are familiar with Riders Minds, you know, obviously we are the UK's leading mental health equestrian charity. Started in 2019 because we know that there is a huge demand for our services in the equestrian industry. We know that the equestrian industry is tough, so we offer a 24/7 online chat helpline, and we've also got a text service as well, and with that we follow up with counselling services. But what we are very aware of is that 23% of 8 to 19-year-olds in the UK will experience a mental health disorder or experience suicidal thoughts, something like that at some point. So we knew that what we needed to do with the opportunity to collaborate with the Pony Club to really ensure that these young people coming through, that we're protecting their well-being as much as that we can do. So I'm going to hand over to our Riders Minds mental health expert, Sylvia Bruce. She has created all of our Riders Minds content and an online resource, and she's actually been the brilliant one that's written the actual syllabus for the Pony Club badge. So I'm going to hand over to her, who's going to discuss with you how actually to deliver this badge with children at Pony Club camps.
Wow, thank you for that glowing introduction, Victoria. A little bit squeamish there. We never really like to hear, don't we, how you know what we've done with things. So, but thank you for that intro, and again, thank you to the Pony Club for inviting us here this evening. It's a great turnout, I understand. So it shows the interest in this badge and in the subject matter. And that statistic that you provided there, Victoria, is shocking, very shocking. And I think we'll all sort of agree with that something really needs to be done with the youth mental health generally. A bit of background on myself, just to sort of reiterate the credentials. I'm an integrative counsellor with additional qualifications in highly specialised areas. I'm also a neuro-linguistic programming coach, master, NLP equine assisted practitioner. And as Victoria said, I'm the website's, Riders Minds website content creator, subject matter expert and consultant. And I'm one of the counsellors that sit behind the 24/7 helpline for any of those callers to our awesome team if they need any more support. I've had my own mental ill health to full recovery and mental health experiences. suicidal depression and various suicide attempts, which is the backstory and the background to why I do what I do now. And horses and horse riding have been my lifelong passion, happy place, escape, therapy. And I currently have a 24-year-old who is still absolutely full of beans. And yes, so I think he's going on about 4 years old. I'm a former banking executive. I'm a director of HSBC, managing a team and a portfolio about $4 billion. But I was also their mental health champion and the chair of the mental health committee, driving the mental health agenda forward alongside senior executives. And since leaving financial services, I've worked with various organisations, government ministries, overseas embassies, raising mental health awareness and mental health confidence. And before I created the content for Riders Minds, I created the Grooms Minds for the British Grooms Association and Employers Minds for the Equestrian Employers Association. Also, This Can Happen ambassador, driving the mental health workplace agenda forward, and I have a private practice. And as Victoria said, you can blame me for writing the criteria and the learning outcome for the Riders Minds Achievement Badge and the completion sheet that we will come to later. As said, the badge was launched in 2024. Just a little bit about why it's so important. The badge is really, really important because it's the first badge of its kind in a comparative world youth organisation specifically aimed at education and supporting young people's mental well-being. You know, the first of its kind. The Scouts have no comparison. The Guides and Brownies have a feel-good badges, a healthy mind, which is about being and staying calm, and they have various self-cares about doing restorative activities and hobbies and pastimes, but nothing like this badge. So you can see how important and pioneering this Pony Club badge is, and how important this collaboration between Riders Minds and Pony Club is. And you as the coaches, you can all be part of this. It's also very important because, given those stats that Victoria just shared, young person's mental health is a hot topic and extremely shocking and extremely worrying. And it has been for some time. Indeed, I spoke at the 2023 AGM, Pony Club AGM, about on this very topic. But it has another important message too, because it's also about horse and pony welfare, which is also a hot topic. Whilst this badge focuses on education and supporting the younger generation of equestrians on the importance of mental health and well-being, it has an underlying key message that rider mental health can affect, and often does affect, horse welfare. If the rider isn't okay, that can then have a ripple effect on everyone around them, including their horses and ponies. They may be irritable, short-tempered, tension in their arms and their hands. Their patience and the kindness and time for understanding can suffer. Mental health, more specifically poor mental health, affects how we turn up and what we do, how we ride. So coaches, when you're watching a horse and pony and rider, how often do you look at the rider? How often do you look at their behaviour? Often people look at the horse, but horses are great reflectors of what's going on for the rider. Not always, not always, as horses have their own personalities too. And ponies will quite often do their thing. They know their job. So use your observation skills. Use what you already have and do in a different way to get more out of it. So the badge is not in a vertical mental health silo or rider's mind silo. The badge, the badge has wide-ranging implications for horse and pony welfare, riders and other relationships too. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I thought just a touch on the language. Tonight isn't a mental health training webinar. It's about training the trainer, helping you, the coaches, deliver the Riders Minds Achievement Badge. The badge is about mental health too. And I stress that, it's about mental health. So I will not be talking about depression, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, stress. And if some of you are expecting that, then you're going to be very disappointed. Because this is something I talk a lot about, is the differentiation between mental health and poor mental health. So thinking about it, although I said this isn't mental health training, I think it is important to re-emphasise, which was so eloquently put in the 2017 Stevenson Farmer Thriving at Work report, and I will read it to you because it's important to get it correct. By mental health, we do not mean mental ill health. We mean the mental health we all have, just as we all have physical health. The correct way to view mental health is that we all have it, and we fluctuate between thriving, struggling, and being ill and possibly off work. So it's a continuum. We fluctuate along the continuum. We can have off days. We can have those days when things don't go according to plan, but it doesn't mean we have poor mental health or mental illness. So it's a continuum. And the other thing is that the mental health definition from the World Health Organization is, and again I'll read it to make I get it correct. Mental health is not just the absence of mental disorder. It is defined as a state of well-being which every individual realizes their potential, copes with the normal stresses of life, that's important, works productively and fruitfully, contributes to their community, in this case equestrianism, and enables sound decision-making and informed choices. There is no mention of depression, trauma, anxiety, or the hundreds of mental illnesses or conditions there are under DSM-5 or the ICD-11. So switching, just to back up for a moment, another point has just come up for me. So perhaps is to reflect on your own reactions to the words mental health and think about what immediately springs to mind when you hear the term mental health. Because that may be why language such as mental health can be understandably scary for some, because they may be jumping to depression, anxiety, and all those things. So switching and shifting that understanding to what mental health is and what it isn't is important and can make the language and the parlance less scary. It could be the difference that makes the difference. And it could be the difference that makes the difference whether we engage, lean into the subject matter, which I'm pleased to say a lot of, you coaches that have signed up to this is evidence that you are leaning into this subject matter, or stay on the outskirts, lean away, oh, this is a bit tricky, I'm not going to go there. So we place our focus correctly. Another point is terminology. Rather than using mental health and risk the misunderstanding, as I've just highlighted, it's common practice to use okay. We've heard it's okay to not be okay. We've heard, are you okay? And again, that's more palatable and understandable given that we are talking about mental health, not poor mental health and illnesses and disorders. And we wouldn't ask someone, oh, how's your mental health today? We'd say, how are you? Are you okay? How are you getting on? How are you doing? And not being okay does not mean poor health or illness either. So that's further down that continuum as I talked about earlier. And getting back to that point, which has just reminded me about mental health and poor mental health, just a little anecdote. Years ago, I had a senior executive who was quite defensive, let's put it that way. Sylvie, I don't have mental health. I said, well, I think you find you do, because we all have mental health. And what you are talking about is poor mental health. So again, it's that differentiation between the two. Coming back to being okay and the language and the terminology. We're simply okay and being our okay selves. It could also be that when we're not okay, it's a sign that we're having a bad day. It could be the sign that something more is going on. And being okay, we're not super high and super low. We're okay. It's a sign that we are bouncing back, we're managing life's ups and downs, and it takes us back to that mental health definition from the World Health Organization. We're resilient, we're bouncing back. I think I've used this before, Victoria, haven't I? The quote from Tigger, it's It's not how fast you run or how high you climb, it's how you bounce back. It's our bounce back ability. Stress isn't mentioned in this learning outcome either. There's a physiological phenomenon that we get what we pay attention to. And quite often we talk about stress, people might start to feel stressed. Similarly with anxiety. It's another phrase, energy flows where attention goes. And again, we are not talking about poor mental health. We're talking about being okay. So let's look at those learning outcomes. I think you've got them up on the screen, haven't you, somewhere? Yeah, here we go. So learning outcomes, just to back up for a moment, this looks a very, very long document. It's 9 pages. But the majority of this document is concerned with the teaching ideas and resources. So that's why it may, let's not overcomplicate things. Let's keep it simple, and let's not get too scared about it. The learning objectives are what we are focusing on, and they are actually quite simple. So, what does feeling mentally okay look like? How might you recognise if you're not okay? What things might make you feel unhappy? What can you do to make yourself feel okay again? They're actually quite straightforward. How they are met, we've now a completion sheet, which we will come to later. Now, excuse me. So at the beginning, so the learning outcomes 1 to 7, they are straightforward. Especially now if we're focusing on mental health and not poor mental health, and we are using the okay terminology. And wherever mental health or mentally appears, think being okay, being not okay. So these are all quite straightforward. Have I got control of this, Zoe? Yeah. So if I go here, oh, look at that. So these are the very straightforward. So focus on these. These are very straightforward, which we will come back to when we look at the completion sheet later. Now, the rest of the document really is the suggested teaching ideas and resources. And as it says, they are suggested teaching ideas and resources. There are lots of them. So don't get bamboozled by them or, overcomplicated by them. You will have your own ideas how you will do these and how you will deliver the badge. And that will depend on your environment. Maybe you may want to do it at camps. You may want to do it during the winter months. You may want to do it indoors or outdoors. It will depend on your member numbers, your facilities and the resources available to you. And the lot of the resources in there that I've looked at and I've included are based on a lovely book, and I've got it here. I don't know if you can see that. It's about learning resources, wellbeing resilience workbook for mental toughness for young people, and I've adapted it for the equestrian environment, and also alongside a child psychologist friend of mine. So again, these are suggested teaching ideas and resources. And the idea is when you teach all these resources, however you do it, is to tease out the answers to the questions 1 to 7. So it's almost back to front. But keep it simple. You don't need actually lots of resources, and make it interactive. Riders are very good at spotting the signs in the horses and ponies, and they can transfer that to themselves and the other riders, and you can make it fun. You can use that body language. You can pull faces. What does this look like? What does that look like? What's that look like? We can read the body language. We can read the signs as to what's going on for someone. And it also enables you, the coaches, to spot some signs of changes in your riders. You can observe the horse and rider, so you can transfer that skill to observing the behaviours. So really, don't get too hooked up on this long document. These are suggested teaching ideas and resources. You may wish to do it in your own way. You may wish to do it as I said, it will depend on so many factors. That's really the teaching suggestions, ideas and resources. The important thing is, going back here, or getting the hang of driving this now, is the learning objectives. These are what's important. And they are also repeated in the completion sheet, which I'll speak at later. Now, moving to the syllabus, which again is all in here. The syllabus will be the same. So here, how to know when you're okay. What does being mentally healthy okay look like? These are some ideas. What are your thinking, feeling, doing, experiencing in your behaviours? There's some ideas. You can adapt these, create them, create new ones. What makes you happy? These are the syllabus. What makes you happy? What makes you unhappy? These are the crux of the questions. So for syllabus 1 and 2, you have a happiness ratings. You can make it up. You can do whatever you wish, however you want to. You may have exercises that you've done already that you could adapt for this. So please, I think this way may got a bit complicated or a bit overwhelming because there's a lot here, but it's mainly to do with the learning resources. Now, what I will do, I'm going to skip through this, Zoe, because this is predominantly the suggested learning ideas. And perhaps if I go to the end, here we go, right to the very end. Here, create top tips. So you can, these are all ideas how to deliver the badge. We could use some. And sometimes if you're at camps, for example, or interacting with your members, you may see some of the syllabus met without being here. For example, the one about, does someone notice someone else is not okay? You might spot that one child has gone over to help someone else, to console them when something's not gone quite right. So you may find it that way. But what I will do is go to the completion sheet. Do we have that there, Zoe? Because let's just back up for a moment. We have this new edition of the completion sheet. I think it is in the resources, I think, Zoe, but the coaches, you may not have seen it or you may not have read it. Again, we have this new edition, this completion sheet. Now, backing up for a moment. From the survey done some time ago, we totally understand and get the coaches' concerns or their wonders or the apprehension about awarding the badge, given the syllabus and all the learning outcomes. But again, just park all those, so park the teaching ideas and the suggestions. We're focusing on the completion sheet, which is the syllabus, which is the criteria. And we understand that awarding the badge becomes subjective, opinion-based, rather than fact-based. I've often shared with Zoe and Victoria, that this isn't the bird watching badge. It's not like there's a sparrow, there's a woodpecker, there's a starling, there's a blackbird. And maybe the concerns about getting it wrong, especially as it's a sensitive subject, may be coming from that it's subjective based and opinion based rather than fact based. So this is why I drew up this completion sheet. However, hopefully, now having a better understanding of what mental health is and what it isn't, and using the words okay, and this isn't about depression, anxiety, all those things, those concerns may have eased slightly, I hope, but may have eased quite a lot. So anyway, on that basis, I created this completion sheet. So this here, the 1 to 7, is identical to the previous document. But what this does, it shifts the criteria syllabus meeting to evidence-based rather than subjective coaches opinion-based. In other words, it transfers the onus from being your opinion, perception, subjectivity, based on evidence and demonstration of the criteria. So if we go to, for example, here. Oh, here we go. Here. Criteria. Has applicant explained, described theirs? Provide at least one example of their understanding. So I'm jumping about a bit here. So if we go back to here, what does feeling mentally okay look like? So being okay. Now, the clues are in the answers and the suggestions. The answer, be able to explain what feeling and being happy feels like to them. Suggestions might include feeling happy, healthy, and that type of thing. So when you go to here, you may put in there, has John clearly explained, described theirs? Yes. Provide at least one example of their understanding. They explained to me, or they said, that their body was relaxed, there's no tension, they're excited about their next lesson, they're excited about going to the championships, they're excited, they're enjoying their time with their pony and friends. It's very, very simple. But you will be teasing this all out when you've done your training, your guidance, your play and your interactivity. Secondly, how this one here, has applicant learning outcome 2, how might you recognize if you're not okay? Explain what feeling and not being okay means for you. The answer is here. Be able to explain what feeling unhappy might be like to them. So what you might be looking for is things like feeling apprehensive or worried, or feeling irritable, or feeling low energy, sad, feeling uptight, feeling a bit snappy, a bit grumpy. It's quite simple. It's prompting not only you as the coach, but primarily the member to put in here what it means to describe what feeling not okay mean to you. Feeling unhappy, feeling grumpy, irritable. I've got a headache. I've got heartbeats. My heart's racing. I've got sweaty palms, sweaty head, can't seem to focus, lack of concentration, all those type of things. And again, going back to, hang on, let's drive again. Oh no, I don't need to do that, do I? Because it's in there. Sorry. So here, learning outcome 3. What things might make you feel unhappy and what can you do to help make yourself okay again? We go back to here. The clue, answer. Be able to explain what factors might influence feelings of unhappiness. And basic self-help tools to support this. So there you might be looking for what makes them feel unhappy. Could be lonely, left out, not being picked for the team, not getting something right. Their pony's misbehaving. They're upset by someone's comments. Someone has posted something on social media. And the basic self-help tools, as it says there, taking a break from social media. Applying the half halt technique, which I think you've got somewhere, haven't you? And there's Zoe too. It's about the half halt. We learn the half halt to rebalance, reset, and refocus our horses and ponies. We can take a breather, take a hoofbeat, take a breathing exercise to actually calm, refocus, rebalance. Might simply be, as I often do, go and have a bit of a loving and a cuddle with your pony. Give it a nice groom. Not too many carrots, but have some special time. That could be as simple as that, or it could be practicing something till you get that technique right. It could be asking others, well, how do you do that? I'm not getting it. How do you do that? So again, number 4, how might you recognize if someone else is not feeling okay? Answer, change of mood, closed body language. So we go to here. So that's number 4. Sorry, I've lost my place. Explain how to recognize if someone else is not okay. Once again, it might be they've noticed that they're grumpy, they're irritable, they're loud instead of quiet, or quiet instead of loud. They're changes of behavior, change of mood. Not turning up to lessons might be one. The pony isn't its normal self. Their clothing, their turnout, their appearance. Again, all those things that will indicate, and going with our gut instinct often, that something isn't okay. And when we're dealing with children and young adults, they're a lot more straightforward and uncomplicated than we are as human beings. You know, they don't mind read, they just say it as it is. So bear that in mind. The language will be different with the youngsters too. So learning outcome 5. How can your mental health affect others? In other words, how does when you're okay affect others? How does when you're okay not okay affect others? When you are okay with others, including a horse and pony, when you're not okay, affect your horse and pony. And here really is where the horse welfare piece very much comes in. And again, when you are delivering the badge and delivering your information and guidance and all that stuff, this is where you'll be teasing out a lot around the horse and pony welfare. For example, when you're okay, it could be all feels good, all feels well. They're having great conversations with their friends and family. They're having fun and enjoyment and laughing. They're understanding each other. Their riding feels good. There's a flow. It feels good. It's difficult sometimes to articulate that, but we, as riders, we know what that feels like. It could be, you know, we're patient with people. We are kind to people. We're surrounded by friends and family. And then the opposite, when you're not okay, how does it affect others? What can be the opposite of all the things that you had in the top box under A, but also the effect on the horse and pony could be a bit of confusion, because the rider's not getting things, getting a little bit frustrated, maybe some confusion. The pony doesn't go as well. People may avoid someone who's grumpy and irritable. The pony might be tense. There may be tension in the rider's arms and hands and body, which then transmit through the hands to the bit, to the mouth of the pony. They may not be as patient. They may not be as kind. They may not allow for the horse to process what's going on, what's been asked of them. So you can see, as we said earlier, it affects how we turn up and how we do what we do and how we ride. I'll give you for example here. Many years ago, when I was having a real tough time when I was in banking, I used to come to the stables to ride my horse and I felt okay. But he's a very sensitive soul and he'd be a little bit awkward. And I'd have to be very careful that I got myself in the zone and I was 100% focused on what I was doing rather than carrying stuff from my workplace. So it's very interesting how they can mirror, as we said, and reflect. Not all the time, and that will take the coach, you as the coach, your skill and the rider's skill to differentiate. But it can have a very, very big impact on horse and pony welfare if the rider isn't okay. I cannot stress that enough, one really. But coming to number 6, provide at least one example of the understanding for A and B. When you feel under pressure and when someone else feels under pressure. Here's an example where we don't use stress. We don't want to use stress. We don't want people getting stressed. Think about the continuum. We want people to be pressure's motivator, but it can tip into stress. But let's not talk about stress because we don't want people to get stressed. And again, the clue is in, hang on. The clue's here. Answer, be able to recognise a situation when either they or someone else has felt pressured. Might include competition before an exam, pressure from peers and parents. It could be all sorts of different things. Could be pressure during a lesson. Could be pressure because someone's been calling them names or their ponies' names. Could be that they may have different clothing. Maybe that they're coming from different backgrounds. not having the latest up-to-date clothes, and they feel pressured to have all that. We know all the different things that go on, and that could be in there. And again, it might not be necessarily a question based. It could be pressure at school, pressure at home. But it's understanding where that's coming from, and also to be able to spot that in others too. Excuse me. So again, the answers are there really. And then the main one at the end, if you or someone you know needed support, where would you go? Again, depending on the age groups you're talking to, it might not be listen and reassure them and suggest that they call Riders Minds and take a half haul. It might just simply be speak up, tell an adult, tell your coach what's going on. And then the coach might speak to the safeguarding officer if there's something more than that going on, or for similar mental health charity. But simply around that one is, what would you do to help? So the idea being, if Johnny sees Susie having a bit of having a tough time and getting upset, you would like that in this one. Hang on here. Hang on. Bear with me. Here, you'd like to see here that they encourage them to speak up, to go and tell someone, or to go and share it with their coach or someone like that. So really, this is quite straightforward. So the idea being that we have the big document repeating this 1 to 7. Separately, we have all those ideas for how to deliver that training. You can use that as a guide. You can use your own ideas, again, depending on the resources and everything you have available to you. But then use this completion sheet, because then it shifts it away, as I said earlier, from it being, have I got it right? Have I allocated it correctly? Have I got it right as a coach? To it being evidence-based. But I think before we go to Q&A, I think it's also worth mentioning for you as the coaches, as I say, this is a new document, so you probably need time to digest it. But I think it's also worth mentioning to you as the coaches that you also need to look after yourselves. You wear many hats. You're a coach, comforter, confident, encourager, motivator, mentor, mediator, feedback giver, role model, befriender, listener, all those things. It's what we call emotional labour. How much do you invest in what you do? So you also need to look after yourselves. You also need to know when you're okay or not okay. And how do you articulate that? Sometimes we can't articulate it. We just have a sense and go with our gut instinct. Because, as I said earlier, being okay, not okay affects how we turn up and how we do what we do, how we do our jobs, how you coach. And if you're not at your best, if you're not okay, that can have a ripple effect around the other way too. And that's potential to have repercussions on your brand, your reputation, potentially your income, on all those things. But just to remember that, to remind yourselves to look after yourselves, because you do an amazing job. And it's a lot of responsibility to carry when you're working with all this young talent, and horse welfare, and the Pony Club rules and regulations, and all the other things you have to take into consideration. So make sure you look after yourselves too. I think from a going through the documentation point of view, that's really all I have to say at the moment. So I wonder if we can go to Q&A now. Or has anyone got any feedback, anything else they want covered, perhaps? Or have I stunned everyone into silence?
Well, we do have a few questions coming through. So why don't we start working our way through those? And then if there is anything else that comes up into the chat that we think we need to cover, we could elaborate further into. Does that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess I'll start off with quite a straightforward question here that we've got from Heather. And let me just submit this through so you can see. Is using the completion sheet compulsory?
No. Not at all. If you're happy with it as it is, go for it. That's lovely. Yeah, brilliant.
Perfect. Okay, right, let's go back to that. There is quite a few coming through, so if I'm a little bit slow, bear with us. Let's pull this one down. There's some concerns here around focusing on the word happiness. Is there any way that we can adapt the language?
Yeah, you can adapt the language whatever suits you. Again, it's one of these things where the words are in there. However, there will always be a comment about various language that we use, because it doesn't fit everyone. Yes, it is a transitory thing, and what's happy to one person isn't to someone else. What's content to someone isn't to someone else. So you can change the wording as when you deliver it, and as you the fitting the criteria. It doesn't have to be happiness. Yeah, we can just being okay. Being okay may be suitable. Is that okay? But yes, you can. Yeah, it's not cast in stone. Are you happy or not? Can I say I'm happy today? I don't know. I'm all right. That's about it. So
Thank you. And there's another further question here from Alison. She's currently using emotional language when they discuss pony behaviour and how our pony might be feeling and how we might be feeling. Can we run the pony behaviour badge concurrently with the Rider's Minds badge?
Yes. Yes. Because yes, you can run them concurrently, because one will actually inform the other, and it actually then gives an even better understanding, I would say. But yes, you can run the two at the same time, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, let's. I think here we've got another question here. Does the completion sheet have to be completed for everyone, or is it a guide for the coaches awarding the badge, which I think we have covered?
Yep.
There.
Yep.
So I'm not going to pull that one up. I'm going to put this one through because you might be able to offer some guidance. Oh, I've lost the one I just put through, so I'm going to read it out instead. I started to look at this badge on World Mental Health Day, and we found a fortune teller activity, but they can't seem to find it now. They believed it was with the Riders on the Rider's Minds webpage. Is this familiar to either of you, or do you have any alternative advice that they could use?
Can you repeat that question?
Yes. So Rachel here on World Mental Health Day, she found a fortune teller activity, but believes it was on your webpage, but it's not available now. Is this something? Is there an alternative that exists?
I don't think the fortune teller activity was on our website. I don't recall that being on our web pages. Victoria, do you? I don't think it was.
No, I don't recall the fortune teller activity.
Yeah. I can't see it right now. I thought it was on the Rider's Minds webpage. No, I don't think it was on our webpage.
Thank you. Is there any suggestion of an alternative?
No, we can investigate. We can investigate. Or again, that's a perfect example in a way of people using their own ways of delivering the badge. But I don't have that fortune teller activity, but I can look something similar up. Let me make a note.
So here, do we have any content on building resilience within this badge?
Yes and no. It's not explicit about building resilience, but the idea being resilience is our bounce back ability. And as we said there, with the definition of mental health. So the idea being the implicit message is about building resilience. It's not overtly about building resilience. The idea being here is that if we can spot our signs of when we're okay and when we're not okay, and that may be something else to look at, Zoe, later on, because we could do something very specific around building resilience. So there's the badge implicitly covers resilience, not overtly, but it's something that we could look at, because as a separate matter, BD, British Dressage, we're working with them at the moment to do a lot of work, and one of those is about building resilience. So it's something that we could look at doing. You could even have a separate badge. Yeah, very easy to create a separate badge on resilience.
Yeah. Bear with. I'm going to put. I've got a lot of age-related questions within here, so I'm not going to submit them all through. But what I will do here is I will hand over to our team. Obviously, as you're aware, we do have different age ranges of badges, but I will hand over to Ellie to give a little bit more information on the training from the training perspective.
Thanks, Zoe. So the achievement badges are generally for those members from D+ to C+ level. So recommended for those over 8 years of age. However, as we've discussed, you need to obviously adapt that to the members that you're covering this badge with. And I'm pleased to say that we're also working with Sylvia and Victoria on a mini achievement badge as well as an advanced. So we'll have the full range, as we do with all of our other achievement badges, from mini up to advanced.
Thanks, Ellie. Okay, I'm just going to pop another question through and get it up on the screen for you. Do bear with while we're playing with the technology. Young people use the word stress to describe a wide range of emotions and situations. What alternative words should we be encouraging them to use? And in your experience, does pressure sufficiently resonate with young people to help them describe their feelings?
This is a really interesting question, and it's something I do a lot of talk around, because back up for a moment, what's been happening over the last few years where various organisations have been talking about mental health coming up the agenda, and a lot of people talking about when we talk about mental health, like we said earlier, the amount of people that the then default position is the poor mental health space. So what's been happening is when people have been talking about their mental health on celebrities or on the news and things like this, all too often people will talk about their poor mental health. They'll talk about their stress. They'll talk about their, depression, their anxiety. You very rarely, and I've never actually heard someone talking about their mental health, i.e., how do they maintain cool, calm and collected? How do they build resilience? How do they bounce back? How do they develop their resilience? And what's been happening is the more we talk about mental health, and this is something I've spoken about a lot, we then run the risk of tipping into the language that we're then using become part of everyday language, what is not actually accurate. Here, the amount of people talking about stressed. Now, are they actually stressed, or are they feeling overwhelmed or just too much? Because stress, as I said earlier, we get what we pay attention to, and it's become almost like the default position. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm stressed. Are you actually? Overwhelmed may be a slightly, or is a better word to use, because that really is what stress is. And also to remind people that you may be in a stressful situation. That does not mean that we are stressed. For example, you wouldn't want a paramedic or a 999 caller to be stressed when he turns up. That's my point. But all too often, because we are now using language, mental health or poor mental health language more and more and more, it's creeping into everyday language and quite often not being used appropriately. Just to sort of re-emphasize this point, the amount of people, young children and young kids I hear, oh, my OCD is really bad today. OCD is a clinically medical diagnosed illness under the DSM-5 ICD-11. it's a serious matter. So this is the disadvantage of talking about mental health or poor mental health more and more. We have a tendency to use words, oh, I'm stressed. It's a throwaway, oh, I'm stressed. You may be feeling overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, I would suggest, is probably a little bit better to answer this question specifically. And actually ask them, are you actually stressed or are you in a stressful situation? Because it also, coming back to that, the other question about the emotions of humans and the emotions of animals and apply them to others. I forget what the question was. Here is a perfect example. If you're stressed, your pony may be stressed. We don't want that. So just thinking about being overwhelmed, I would say, in specific answer to this question. Pressure, again, you see, pressure is actually the correct terminology. I know this isn't a mental health training thing. However, what's happened is you have pressure and then that can tip into stress. So actually the correct terminology is pressure. Pressure comes before stress. So pressure or overwhelm. But because of everyone's been talking about it, the default position has become stressed. So sometimes it's almost to challenge them. Are you really stressed? Or are you feeling overwhelmed? Or are you feeling under pressure? Because switching it back to pressure actually puts them more in control. Stress is when things happen to us we don't feel we have any control over. Pressure can act as a motivator. But equally, so can stress. I did say this wasn't mental health training, but I'm doing it anyway. But stress can also be a motivator. So encourage someone who insists on using the word stress. Use the stress as a motivator to do something different, to act. Because action changes things. Put them back in control. So I would hear pressure is the correct terminology, overwhelmed is the correct terminology, and let's try and get them away from the default position of using stressed. Because it's all too easy. I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, and get in a stressed environment. What happens then is the prefrontal cortex of the brain goes into overdrive, and then the amygdala, which is the instinct part of the brain, goes, hang on, I'm stressed, I'm going to go and fight, flight or freeze. We don't want that to happen. So we want the prefrontal cortex to work. So let's use language that enables it to work and not get overwhelmed. It's a very, very long-winded answer, but I hope that has helped.
Thanks, Sylvia. I think it follows quite nicely into this next question. In our badge rallies, especially with the older ones, it can be hard to get them to talk openly in front of each other. Yeah. I think this might make them clam up even more because it feels so personal. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips?
Well, I think what's going on here, it's a great question. And I think when you do the camps and the learning outcomes is to sometimes understand that it is personal. And this is the whole idea, is to encourage them to speak up, to create an environment where it's okay to talk. And sometimes giving examples, you may even want to use your own examples. And just use it in general. And sometimes you can be very sort of creative and very strategic, really, coming back to the one about the horses and ponies, using the horses and ponies. How do you think that pony might feel when that happens? And then they get to talk about that. But what ends up is they end up talking about their own experience, it's rather than the horse and pony. So it is simply, it is hard to get them to talk openly in front of each other. I don't think it will help them or encourage them to clam up even more, because the idea is that when you deliver the badge in those different suggested ways, it's interactive, it's collaborative, and where you might get some people will speak up, the others may not speak up, but they may be processing and listening, and you may just find that they may come to you or speak up separately. You will never know. But I think I think that would probably be my sort of tips around that. It's also not to worry too much about it, because they will be listening, they will be observing, they will be taking it all in. I don't know if Victoria, have you got any tips with the youngsters that you have?
Yeah, so one I've obviously got young children myself, but I think that, going back to your point, Sylvia, I think that they actually are listening and they're taking in a lot more. And I think in terms of, I know one exercise which I've done with young people, and I'd, you know, is a bit of an exercise sometimes to do with them when it's trying to make them make them self-aware of just how comments, you know, we obviously talked about this social media culture, how they're all very influenced. Young people are very influenced about the opinions of others. They're very comparative of what other people are doing, and sometimes a really good exercise just to get them to do is to and you know, you could use an example of when they're in the arena or they're riding their pony, or they were at camp riding their pony round, is have, you know, write maybe 3-4 mean comments of, oh, you're not riding well enough, or your hands aren't still enough, or something like that, in a, you know, obviously it's got to be relevant to the age group that you're coaching. And then also you then can get them to write sort of 4 or 5 nice comments down, and then you do an exercise where then you get one of them sort of sit in the middle, and then at the same time have both other sets of kids talking in each other's ear. And actually, when they do that exercise, they then realize that the only comments that they hear are the negative ones. And it's just sometimes really good to make them think and self-reflect on actually how much more noticeable a mean comment is than a nice one. So actually give a nice comment to that person today, because it's going to make yourself feel that bit better, and then it's also going to give that other person, make that other person feel better as well. So just there's so many different exercises, ideas that you can do to I think to engage them, but they actually love you know, role plays or thinking or likening it to other things. And once they actually do start to open up and talk, then you find then you can't stop them. But I think if we're apprehensive about raising the subject with them, they then clam up back with us. Whereas I'm very open, certainly with my kids, speaking about that, you know, subject, or how the effect it can have on other people. And I think if you are relaxed about it, then they'll be relaxed about it back with you as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think and I think sometimes the more that we do talk about it, and you know, because it feels personal, it's not always personal, because they can be sharing their experience. So it can be about the performance, it's not about the person. It's a bit like when, you know, someone's being, you know, in an arena being judged, their performance is being judged, not the person themselves. So sometimes it's, you know, sharing, you know, what it feels like. Sometimes if they share their thoughts, can be a little bit more palatable for some, rather than sharing their feelings. That's another thing. And I'm just looking at, there's a comment here. Pressure is a great word to use when discussing this, as it relates to pressure release with their ponies, and how pressure motivates the pony to take action to release pressure. Like that. I like how, again, it's using what you already have, riding techniques, and transferring those to human techniques or human interactions. And I think that's, you know, how we can use such great analogies between how members and ponies may feel in pressure situations. So thank you very much, Brooks, for that comment there. Love it.
Again, I think this feeds well into the next question I'm going to bring up. How we deal with this subject for neurodivergent young people.
Guidance and helpful language. My personal reaction would be to keep it as simple as possible. Keep it as simple as possible. Sometimes, you know, we have this beautiful English language and there's so many words for the same thing, but just keeping it as simple as possible for those neurodivergent, because they can have various different thoughts and feelings for the same thing. I would say my guidance would be, keep it simple in naming your emotions and ask them what they are feeling. Because, say for example, I said today I'm feeling happy, that might be someone else's content. Someone else might be feeling angry, someone else might be feeling frustrated. Ask them what they are feeling, rather than us mind reading what they are thinking. But keep it simple. Please just keep it simple.
Thanks for that, Sylvia. That does sum up all the questions that I have submitted, but we can wait a moment if you've got the time to just see if anybody else has any last minute questions they want to submit. Alternatively, while you're typing those out, if you think you've missed something out today, please do feel free to reach out to us on the communications@pcuk.org email address, and we can get those filtered to the correct people to get them answered for you. So don't worry if you miss out for this afternoon.
There's a comment here from Joanne. I support SEND children. One is selectively mute. We are working on tools with which she can express herself. Horses can't talk. Horses can't talk. And it amazes me how we can communicate to a horse what we need and what we want and what we'd like to have happen just by using our body. Yes, we use verbals. Oh, good boy, good girl. Yeah, well done. That stuff, all that. But horse responds to our body language. So in terms of working on tools with which she can express herself, really raise the awareness to the body language. What messages is that sending? When we're in a stable with a horse, you want it to move over. You move near it to it. It will naturally, generally, move out the way. Use that sensitivity. Use your body. When we're riding, we don't say turn left, turn right, do we? We use our body. We use our body language and our presence and our energy. So perhaps that's something that you can, you weave that into working on tools with which she can express herself. And again, as Joanne said, they understand better than us how they need to communicate. Yes. And we read their body language too. I know when my horse is feeling a bit, aggy. I know when he's a bit silly and when he's, he's okay. We read that body language. We interpret that body language. We get familiar with that. We can transfer that extraordinary skill to other, fellow human beings.
Thank you, Sylvia. We haven't had any further questions come through, just some very thankful comments, which I'm hopefully you're seeing on your side of the chat. So I would just express our gratitude at you sitting with us this evening and helping us learn more about the Riders Minds badge and equipping our coaches with the tools to deliver it hopefully over.
Can I just throw it out there? A lot of people are saying it's very informative and interesting and excellent. What has been interesting about it? What has been the main things that's made a difference? What's been the difference that makes the difference? Because it helps us make sure that we can help you as well, because this is a collaboration between Riders Minds and the Pony Club. And if later on we need to tweak the learning outcomes, if something else comes along, then we will tweak it. It's not cast in stone. It will evolve along the way. Well, I'm hoping. Well, I'm speaking for Zoe herself, but that's my point. It may evolve into, the feedback from the coaches to what it is that you would like in this badge. Tell us, and we can perhaps put it in.
So if you do have any feedback on that, please do send it over. As I say, please do send it over to the communications@PCUK at PCU. I've forgotten the email address. The heat is getting to me all. I apologise. It's communications@pcuk.org. If you've got any feedback there, there's also usually a link that you'll get after this session that you should get to your inbox to send that back. But I appreciate that sometimes it has some technical issues there as well. So please do feel to just come straight through to us and we can get that fed back.
There's a comment here. This has really helped, but still feel a bit overwhelmed. Yes, it can be overwhelming. There is a lot of information in that learning outcome. But remember, you've got the syllabus. Massive chunk of it is how you deliver it. And then you've got the completion sheet to help you, which is optional. So being overwhelmed, is it the subject matter or is it how you deliver? At the same time, keep it very, very simple. Just keep it simple. It is simple. And I think what happens is with mental health over the times and poor mental health, it's become overcomplicated. So keep it simple. Think about how you interact with your horses and ponies, how you can transfer that to humans, how you communicate, whether they are okay or not. It's something that was it Confucius says, things can be so simple, why do we insist on making it so complicated? And how simple things can become complicated and complex. So just keep it very, very simple. Not be over. We all have mental health. We all can experience it. So sometimes sharing our own experiences can be very helpful too. And I like that about your, someone's, for me, the fact we're all talking about it. My daughter's neurodivergent, and all these conversations make Ponycar feel more inclusive. Yes, I think brilliant. Because the more understanding, as I say, neurodivergent is very different to mental health. And I think the more we are talking about it, there is more acceptance that we are all different. Whether it's a neurodivergence or not, we are all different. We're all unique, and we adapt how we are to what's in front of us, as we do our horses. We may have the same riding skills, but we will, adapt to this horse is slightly anxious. That's a bit bold and courageous. That one's a bit arrogant. That one's a bit iffy. We adjust. So we adjust to the human beings in front of us too.
Right, I think that concludes all of the questions that we have coming through there. Let me just patch this comment through as well. But as I say, please do send your feedback over to our email addresses at the Pony Club, and we will take that on board. We will pass out where it needs to be passed out, and we'll get back to any queries that we can as they come through.
Can I just again, got a comment here from Rachel, keeping it simple, try not to deliver the badge all in one go. It doesn't have to be delivered all in one go. Do it piecemeal. It doesn't matter. Do it how suits you. Great comment. I like that. Okay, well, unless I have anything else that just comes through, we'll call it here for the evening. And again, do send through any other further thoughts that you do have as you go into your evenings. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it's possibly quite hot where you are, and a lot to sit through, but I'm glad that you've found it informative and engaging, and hopefully it'll help you moving forward with the Riders Minds badge. As Ellie mentioned earlier, we will have a mini and hopefully an advanced coming out very soon in the near future, but we'll keep you posted on that through the PC UK newsletter that comes out towards the end of every month. And we look forward to meeting you again soon for another training session. So thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Victoria, for your time. It's been really, really great to have you here and helping us this evening, and good night all. Thank you everyone, coaches. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.